You're listening to Lemons Listening Library. Discover the story behind the stories with unique and raw conversations from the people who make your favorite books a reality. Welcome to this episode of Lemons Listening Library. I'm your host, Randie Lemons, fantasy author or RL Rose to those of you in the romance community. Today, I have a super exciting guest that I am sure a lot of you guys as parents were going to be so excited to be introduced to her today. But before that, we do have a little bit of suspense and housekeeping. So I want to remind all of our listeners to head over to YouTube channel, comment on each episode, or review us on your chosen podcast platform. We are on all of them. It is one of the smallest but most helpful ways that you can help support our show. We also have advertising spots available where we create commercials and broadcast them across all of our platforms, as well as give you the commercials to use however you want to. If you want more information on this and it seems like it's something that's interesting to you, please email us at lemonslisteninglibrary@gmail.com and we'll get you hooked up. Lastly, go follow all of our social medias. We're on all of the things, all of the platforms. Again, you can use at Lemons Listening Library. That's where we're at. Check us out. Finally, I would like to introduce our guest today, Sarah Beth. I'm not even going to attempt to say your last name. I'll let you say it. I froze. I messed up.
Quite all right. It's quite all right. It's quite all right.
Go ahead and tell our listeners
my name
about
is
yourself.
my name is Sarah Beth Goncarova. My author name is S.B. Goncarova. And I write for children and for adults as well. But my true passion project is writing for children. I write chapter books, I guess lower middle grade to middle grade now, and also plays for kids, which now have been produced in some middle schools in their drama department. So I'm very excited to hear about that. Yeah. And I also create books for the younger set. I've created like a sort of like a graphic novel for more emerging readers, and also there's companion books like for kids who are practicing their handwriting, and kids who just want to color and draw, and they can color the characters and things like that that are in my books. So, and make puppets out of them and things like that. So I try to meet kids where they are at and where they want to be. And I have actually just started teaching literacy in elementary school and absolutely love it.
Oh my gosh,
and
what
so
a little bit of a daunting task though.
So it's great because it's small groups, and the kids, it is daunting though. I feel like we have a lot of challenges, kind of a lot of things that we're up against. So with getting kids loving to read, so I am trying to just try everything that I know and can think of, basically, to spark that passion for reading in kids. But man, it's an uphill challenge.
Right, you're fighting against the technology, the screens that are constantly in their face, the things, all the headsets, everything.
Yes.
And then I feel like kids also have this heightened sense of like what's going on in the world, right? Like in the past, we were like there's a veil in front of us almost. Like we didn't really know what was going on in the real world until we were out there. I didn't know about elections. I didn't know about any of that stuff. My kids know about these things. And it's like, how do we preserve the mindset of young children to just be kids?
Yes, I agree. I mean, the longer that we can keep that innocence, I feel just longer we can preserve that, the better. I feel like the better off we are, but like maybe that is just pie in the sky thinking now. Maybe that's just where we are as a society now.
This is just kind of how it is.
Yeah, and we just have to adapt. Like that's how it is.
Okay, for the listeners listening, I do want to touch base on something really quick. Your phone is the coolest thing ever, and you have it plugged in, and that's your microphone. And your awesome roommate is doing his orchestration in the other room on his.
Yeah, he plays the organ. He's the church organist, so he practices during the day.
But this is we can't hear him at all, and if we do, that's
No.
just some cool little background music as
Yeah.
we have our conversation.
Yeah. No, I am so lucky to have a church organist as a housemate because it's the best burglar alarm ever. I mean, what burglar is going to burgle a house when, they walk in, they go up to the door and they hear like da 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 da, like nobody's going to walk into that house.
That's
It's the
great.
best.
And what a like okay, you don't have to put background music on, like, as you work into your creative mind, you just kinda have it there.
I do. It's very meditative.
That's so
I
cool.
also have a stash of earplugs near the bed, but we're not going to mention that.
That's fine, you know what? Being prepared is the best case scenario.
No, I'm all for practicing. I am. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So what was it that kinda sparked your passion of, like, I see this need of children kinda coming away from the creative side or connecting with their imaginations that led you down this path?
So I think it was just feel this distinct lack of magic. I feel like everything is so prescribed um these days, and I mean I felt it growing up as well. Like every time I would go home there would be like another forested green space that was, like bulldozed over and turned into condominiums. Like it was, every natural space, all the magical spaces were just taken away one by one. There's not many left. And so I feel like kids nowadays, like it's harder to find that magic with, like um just uh how parents are expected to be kind of on top of kids at all times. They're not allowed to um you know in some cases, like they just don't go outside, except for
Yeah.
recess at school. They just don't go out. They're always kind of in front of the screen or just indoors or what have you. But I just I feel like that, and in my own life too, even I mean, maybe I'm just like, a kid that's never grown up, basically. But
I tell my husband all
yeah,
the time, I
like
was like, "When I grow up, I don't know if
yeah,
I ever
yeah. When I
will."
when I get bigger,
Yeah.
yes, no, when I get old, um, yeah. I feel like reading and creativity. I mean, these are just the stepping stones for bringing that magic back. And that is what I want to show kids. I feel like it's maybe it's missing. A lot of times, like, I go into schools and, I see the spark in their eyes are missing, and it saddens me. And so to be able to put that spark back in somehow, like getting them excited about something or creative, or I mean it's different for every kid, right? But yeah, but to be able to just show them like there are worlds beyond the one that we are currently in, and that is of our imagination. It's the world of possibilities, the world of infinite potential, um, and the world of books. I mean, the more that we can imagine, the more that we're exposed to, through reading and our imaginations, like the stronger our, you know, our visualization of what life can be is. So it's important because now is the time that we need to be able to visualize what the world can be like rather than what it is currently. So in this generation, I have hope. I mean, all of our hopes I think are poured into this generation to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And I think that's every
So
generation, right? I feel like every
it
generation
is.
is like and that's the circle of life, that's the circle of
Yeah.
society.
Yeah,
You said
yeah,
something that I would like to touch on. You mentioned how, a lot of times parents, they don't really, there's not the opportunity for parents to allow kids to kind of go out and do things on their own, kind of experience that what it
yeah.
feels like to develop the independence, because people call social services, people will,
Hmm. Yeah,
record this stuff. But I think that there's still a space where we can still do that. And I'll give you an example of what I did with my children. Um I let them know, I was like, "Okay, I'm going to drop you guys off at school and you guys are going to walk home. But that's gonna happen at the end of the week. So every time we're driving home this week, I want you guys to pay attention to the routes we're taking, pay attention to how we get home." And it was like an excited thing of like, this is gonna happen. So you guys gotta pay attention on the drive home. And all week long, they were paying attention. Friday comes, I drop them off at school, and I was like, "Okay, see you guys at home." And I drove away, and it looked like I just drove away, but of course, I drove around the block, circled around, and came
yeah,
behind and
yeah.
was just
You're
watching. I've
following.
got a
Yeah.
video of them. It was the funniest thing watching how their minds work. And bless their hearts, they go past a park, and I'm like, "Oh, they're looking at the park. I thought they were gonna go play for a little bit." They walk over to the park, and they get a drink of water, and then they go right back to the trail, and I was like, "Oh, what good kids."
Wow.
I was so proud of them. It was such a fun experience for them to be like, "I did it all by myself." Of course I didn't tell them that I followed them. Of course I
Of
didn't
course
take that
not.
away from them. I let them have that power of like, I can get home on my own.
Yeah, I had that same experience growing up. My first job was at the National Zoo. I was a teacher's assistant in the
That's so
classes, the summer classes
cool.
they have. Every day that summer, I went on the metro. I metroed over to the zoo, and it's like a good 15-minute, 20-minute walk from the metro station to the actual zoo. And I thought I was doing it all by myself. No, no, no. My dad was following me the whole time, every time. I didn't know it until 20 years later. I did
Yeah.
not know it. Yeah,
There's
he was
still this
following.
space
I
that
did
we
not
can
know it.
allow the kids to
Yeah.
develop their independence safely. Like, we can still do this, guys. Yep. Nope. It's
Yeah.
fun.
I had a friend he's a bit older than I am, say more mid generation X than the cusp, and he tells me about how his mother would, and all the mothers of the kids in the neighborhood would be just kind of kick the kids out the door in the morning and say, "See you at sunset for dinner."
Yep. Yep.
Not to like, but and now that would be, tantamount to negligence, and they'd get, social services would get called on. So, yeah, I mean, it's complex. It's very
Yep.
complex.
Yep.
Um, I mean, he wasn't playing alone; like all the kids were playing together,
Right.
but um, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and I like what you said too about like what the possibilities are, but having like whenever we start to figure out what the possibilities are, we also need to practice like fact checking the actual situation, fact check, because like the actual rate of which kids are abducted and the actual rate of bad stuff happening is so low, but that's what social media focuses on. That's what the news focuses on, and the
This is
fear
true.
that is instilled in
This is true.
parents.
This
Yep.
is true.
So
Yeah.
as we
It's
prepare for the future.
sensationalism. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's interesting though, in that the community that I live in now, it's a very small village, about 1,400 people. And, each grade is about between 12 and 14, 15 kids. When I was growing up, like our school, we were the smallest school in the county, and it was about 250, 300 kids per class.
Yeah.
So, like, we didn't know each other, but these kids have known each other since preschool or kindergarten, I guess, whenever they started. And I mean, and spend, 7 hours a day with each other and have done for years, and they know each other like brothers and sisters. And it's very interesting to see the dynamic. It's very different. And as I didn't grow up in a small village like this. Like it was metropolitan. It was outside of DC, so it was. Kids were bussed in from everywhere. We didn't live near each other. Here it's different. And for me, it's kind of it's more ideal when everybody knows, I mean, not so much that everybody knows your business, and I mean, there's issues with that too. I mean, a lot of issues can come up, like there, but there, it's just an interesting dynamic that has come up. I feel like kids nowadays, they're being taught to be um, a lot have a lot more empathy for each other and understanding for each other. And it's even taught in the curriculums as well, which was not the case growing up. And no, it's actually uh, quite astonishing, and also, it's great. It's inspiring.
Yeah. I
It's
think we're moving in the right direction. I feel like
I
we're
do.
there's a lot of effort going into mental health. There's a lot of effort going
Yes.
into, just being able to realize that, we can get vulnerable with people and that's okay, but also
Yeah.
setting boundaries. Like not only
Yeah.
is it, getting vulnerable, understanding our feelings, but learning to say no. Learning
Yeah.
to set
Yeah.
those boundaries in a healthy way where you realize a boundary means it's what I'm gonna do, not what I'm telling you to do. And so I think we're doing a really good job. I think there's still a lot of work, obviously.
Yeah, obviously, but I think like kids are a lot more socio-emotionally aware than we were at my age. Like I had
Yeah.
honestly honestly I had to look up the word boundary about 2 years ago because I did not know what it meant.
Yeah.
Because I
Right.
had none.
We
Because I
weren't
was
allowed
taught
to
to
have
have
them.
none. Yeah.
Like as children, what do you are you oh my gosh. Me and my husband had this conversation the other day. My son, we asked him how he was feeling about something and he told us that he wasn't going to talk to us about it. And my husband, like you could see our generational like what we his like that's disrespectful and that moment of like what did you just say to me? And then we had a conversation it's like it's okay that he doesn't want to talk about it right now. We can come
Mm-hmm.
back and talk to him about it later. It's not like we're going to just brush it under the rug also, but just we still have such that instinct of like when our kids tell us no and they have a good reason, we're like, "What did you say?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely, it's different. It's a different world and it's interesting to see that it's like kind of night and day, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, because we
And I guess
it's
that's
we
every
had
generation,
yeah.
kind of experiences the same thing, even as far back as the ancient Greeks. Like they're,
Right.
I don't know where this world is going. Like, every generation is like
Yeah.
this. But
Yeah.
no, it's actually it's more a much more positive, I think. In some ways, I think the kids have a lot of challenges for sure.
Oh my gosh,
Like
yes.
going back to like books and reading literacy, like I feel like um, you know kids have these challenges of constantly being exposed to screens, um, and the distractions that just everywhere. I mean, just pulled. I mean, every age. I mean, the platforms that we're on. I mean, they're designed to be addictive, so we stay on them. It's like as authors, how do we compete with that?
Right. Yeah.
This is the question. How do we compete with something that is in a way like kind of maliciously designed to be addictive, but like
Right.
but how do we have to kind of up the ante because we're as authors, like we're competing against this, like we're also competing for attention and
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
the attention economy, so uh and also on the other front, I mean, we're competing with um just sheer numbers, and also AI authors, and it's it's a bit overwhelming. You really have to have a very strong just inner mission, I would say, to a passion, a real passion for it, a mission for sure. I mean, in my case, like I am specifically creating books that will make kids laugh, because I know if they're laughing, then they're going to stick with it. They're gonna read more of the book. More time spent reading is going to make their reading's much stronger. And it just, spirals, and it's an upward spiral from there. But I feel like for me, laughter is key. And that's one thing that AI cannot do
Yeah.
is comedy. And the other thing that they can't do is, or it, you have to play to your strengths, whatever they are as an author, right? And another one of my strengths is like doing voices for kids, making, like doing funny voices and things like that. So if I'm creating read alouds and performing them, it really gets kids engaged. So they say, I'm in a bunch of screenwriting groups because I also do screenwriting, and with the onslaught of AI and people, I have read AI written scripts. Like people are kind of sliding it, it's like under the radar, but yeah, you can tell, um, and and also like AI completely created movies, right? Like animations and like deep fakes and things like that. I feel like a lot of people said, well, we're going to be going back to theater. That's where it's going to be. Live theater is where it's going to be for
Yeah.
writers, screenwriters, basically. So it's interesting. It's like we're at the cusp of a many revolution, and it's a lot of changes happening all at once. So it's
Yeah.
like buckle up your seatbelts, like
Right.
it's
And I
gonna be a
think that
bumpy ride.
yeah, and I think that there's and there's a lot of fear around it, right? And there's a lot of not knowing what's going to happen. And I understand that, but I also think that there's a place for us to kind of let go of the fear because this continues to happen. We continue to have these on the cusp of a big change in our world, and then we figure out how to make it work. Like, if you think about factories having assembly lines put into place. That scared a lot of people. And then we figured it out. And, we figured out, like you said, we also figured out the assembly lines don't work perfectly. We still need human involved in a lot of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so we figure that out. I think that the fear part of this is the piece that really kind of gets people blocked. And if we can just get to where we're curious about how can we make this to where that's their realm or we can use it as a tool or whatever, but also there's human elements that cannot be replaced or taken out of the equation.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Um, so that's one piece. But also you are doing something that I think is so figuring out our place as authors. You're doing something that kind of sticks with the times is you're turning stuff into kind of more like an audiobook and kind of more of like a play of things. And that's one thing that a lot of authors are going into is like we have to keep up with the changes. You're
Yeah.
kind of doing that.
I'm trying to meet kids where they are. So if they prefer to listen to books, they can listen to the books. If they prefer to watch and read aloud at the same time, read along at the same time, they can do that. If they're more social and want to, you know, they want to do, just do more play acting and stuff, there's the plays to work on as
Yeah.
well.
Well,
If
and
they're
I
more
saw one that you were
technologically,
doing
yeah,
where it was like as you're reading along, look for the clues that, uncovers the mystery of that is
yeah.
very engaging.
I try to put clue. Yeah, the Secret Code of the Heartbeat Drum does
Yeah.
have a clue for every chapter. So there's 13 chapters, 13 clues, or I should say every chapter. It's a secret message. It's a
Yeah.
13 word secret message,
Yeah. Which gets them
which
like
nobody has solved yet. Hint, hint.
come on, parents, get your kids
It's
looking at
not that
it.
hard.
Yeah.
It's actually quite easy.
All the adults are gonna go and watch it now and solve that.
Yes, it's
But that's
very
another piece
obvious.
too. Do you feel like there is a place that adults have kind of gotten away from where we don't enjoy middle grade as much? We don't, and we kind of shame each other. Like I've noticed because I've written. Oh my God, I'm an author. I can speak. I wrote young adult, and I feel like a lot of people are like, "Ew, you write young adult?" Like, you know what I mean? That's not something that a lot of people are they're shaming themselves for enjoying something that is more childish. It's more something that is authentic. Like the characters get so emotional to the point that it's like you don't remember being a 12-year-old kid and your emotions are just up here. Like we have to remember that that's how we started with our emotions is just kind of out of control and figuring them out.
Hmm. I read. just all the time, right? I'm a very omnivorous reader, and I read a lot of middle grade and YA, and adult books. And I must say that I am enjoying middle grade and YA quite a bit, a lot more than I thought I would. Mostly, I'm enjoying it for the imagination. I feel like there's a bit less of a constraint on a writer. Like you can just go and dip into fantasy or magical realism, and with, in a blink of an eye, and, kids go for it. Like, they don't have that constraint, like, oh, that's not realistic. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, I mean, they,
Yeah.
they do, but they don't, but they do, but they don't, I mean, you can play with it. So and the messaging, I feel, it's always, uh, especially middle grade, is like always on point. Like, there's always a message behind it, which I don't think in adult books is always there, because they don't
Right.
have to be, but they don't have to be didactic. I mean, there are definitely books that are, or I don't know if it's appreciated as much as an adult. Like, as an adult, we go, oh, I don't need her, like, it's like
Right.
the messaging is, kids don't mind like a message through the book. Like, that's kind of what they're for. They know it's coming. Like, they know it's there. And if it, in fact, like, if it didn't have one, it'd kind of feel a little pointless, I would think, to them. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's another world. But yeah, I think there is, from what I've seen from kids in schools, reading, I feel like there's a huge discrepancy between what is being published as middle grade and YA, and where kids are at age wise, like where their reading level is. I mean, I've talked with teachers, oh, COVID, yes, but like, I mean, that's partly it. But it's not completely. Like, I have seen kids that are doing quite well. So it's not every kid that it's touched, but there's a lot of it's difficult. So I kind of feel like there might be a slight shift in the boundaries of middle grade and YA, so that maybe the protagonists are the same age, but the reading level is a bit for a little lower,
Yeah.
just so that kids are, because I mean, I've heard this. I don't know if it's true in all cases, and I kind of think it isn't, that kids want to read either their age level or above. They don't want to read things for babies. And
Yeah.
I mean, I hear that a lot, but I mean, in practice, I'm not sure if that is truly the case, but that's what's believed. So I feel like, because of the lower ability in reading level, I think there's going to have to be a slight shift. I can tell you that graphic novels are like, they fly off the shelves of
Yeah.
libraries.
My son
Kids
loves graphic novels.
love graphic novels. I have seen kids devour them. I'd be sitting in a cafe, in a meeting with their parents, and bring their kid along, and they will literally devour a stack of books about 10 inches high during that time period.
Yeah.
To graphic novels, they just it's kind of fantastic. I feel like, um I feel, but it's also from an author point of view, I'm completely overwhelmed,
Right.
because
You're like,
I
you mean I
mean,
have to draw this stuff out now?
the amount of work that would go into that, like, sketching, inking, coloring,
Yeah.
putting it all together, like, it would take, I mean, and it does take like a year to 2 years, like, per book. And that's after you have the story exactly where you want it to be.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, the amount of work, and a lot of these graphic novels are drawn by the authors themselves. Not all, but a lot are. And so it's just like, I'm just astounded by the sheer amount of time that goes into these. And if kids are devouring them in like, a matter of hours and then want more, it's like, holy moly, you
Yeah.
cannot keep up.
And that's just the creative side of things. Like,
That's just
think
the
of
creative
we
side.
have the marketing, we have the,
Yeah,
we have to brand ourselves because typically people don't come to us for our books right away. They come to us for whatever brand we're putting out there.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
exhausting. And we kind of were talking about this a little bit before we jumped on recording is the burnout that happens for authors nowadays. It's
Hmm.
like, where do
Yes.
we get rejuvenated? What are we doing to check in on ourselves?
Yes, this is true. I mean, burnout, social media burnout is so very real. It's so prevalent. I mean, I'm going through it myself, to be honest. Like and it's not only that, it's more complex as well because now, it's people are leaving social media because of political statements and things. So it's like, well, okay, well, I mean, as much as I would love to do that, I live in a city very far away from where I grew up, from where I lived just a year ago. I mean, like all of my friend circles are hundreds of miles away, and it's like I don't know how. I mean, I would
That would
lose them.
isolate you so
It would completely
much.
isolate.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's complicated, right? Yeah, it's
Yeah. And I heard a study the other day about isolation, and it talked about how being lonely and being isolated is becoming the equivalent of being a smoker full time. The detriment that it does on your health. And it's like,
hmm
how do we keep up with that? Because like my friends, the friends that I do have, a lot of them are on social media, and we've got all kinds of stuff going on. We talk through like voice text back and forth every now and then, but it's not the conversations like we're having right now between me and you where we see each other nodding after we say something and get that
hmm
immediate response. And like I
Yeah.
think that is part of like what helps the loneliness. But like when you send a voice note and then no one responds to it because we're busy until, the next day, that loneliness has that chance to get into there.
hmm And also, like I would say, for it's that the dopamine, I guess, injection release. I don't know how you'd say, like the dopamine shot that you get from posting something, and
Oh yeah.
then um a lot of people responding to it, if you're lucky, if you're so lucky, or the opposite, like the loneliness and isolation that you feel from that not happening, from a post going flat, which happens more often than not. Like that's pretty detrimental as
Yeah.
well. I mean, especially if you're, I mean, it's complicated. It's complicated by so many different
Right. Right.
factors, right? It's personal, it's algorithm, it's all, yeah, there's so many
It's
different factors going
timing,
into it.
it's the trends.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Half of it's not even having anything to do with you. It's out of your
Yeah,
control.
yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's agendas that are happening way beyond your control. I mean, yeah, that are
Yeah.
just kind of
I,
thrown
I
onto you.
think the biggest thing that we can say to combat that is awareness, right? Awareness
Yes.
of your burnout, awareness of how this is affecting you, awareness of what are you doing this for? Are you doing it because you need that dopamine hit? Or are you doing it because you can put it out there, walk away, and whether it goes viral or falls flat, that's okay. You're going to come and do it again the next day because this is your grind.
Yes, I think it's very real, the burnout, right? It's the expectations, um as authors, that we're expected to be on like pretty much every single platform possible, it's difficult. It's difficult because when do we have the time not only to write and to plan and to think and to create, but also to time to just chill our brains, and
Right.
because we need to I mean, it's it's very tiring to write. um, I mean, I know, if you can get in, if you're lucky enough and to be able to keep a schedule that you're writing every day, I mean, that's incredible, incredible. Um,
And often
it's the
that's on
discipline
top of a full-time job.
on top, and raising kids and bringing them to
Yeah.
school. Yes, and a house, managing a household. So I remember. seeing a conversation with Ursula K. Le Guin, who I think she had 3 or 4 children with her husband, and she said, you can't do, one person can't do 2 jobs, but 2 people can do 3 jobs. So it's just, yeah, stretching yourself beyond, you know, your natural boundaries. I mean, it will have an effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're not careful, so you do have to kind of jealously guard your time and your
Yes, yes. Be
attention.
selfish. I think we need to
Be
get back into
selfish.
being and like not being a dick. We're not asking you to be a dick. We're just asking you to be selfish and within considering yourself first. Like, do I have the bandwidth to commit to this thing that I'm fixing to go on to? Or is, checking in with yourself and saying, what feels most important today? Like,
Yes,
not worrying about
yes.
tomorrow. What feels important today?
Yes, yes, absolutely. You have to check in with yourself. Yeah, as a creative person, you have it has helped me to think of it as a practice, right? So, not as an accomplishment that you work towards. It's more like just part of your daily practice. It's like a meditation. And I feel like that has helped um, keep me on the rails, because our own expectations on ourselves. We see in social media like things going viral and da da da, like people making all this a huge fan base and whatever it is, and then we fall into the very dangerous position of seeing that we are not as successful as those. Like we give ourselves the short end of the stick, and it is so dangerous to do, and it is so we have to guard against that. And I think that if you are thinking of your creative practice as just that, a practice, that helps immensely because it's for yourself, right? It's part
You
of your meditative practice.
You said something that I want to repeat because I don't know if people are realizing how important what you just said is. The expectations that we put on ourselves will kill our creativity if we put expectations up here and we don't meet them. Like the expectations are probably the quickest thing to derail you. And if you're not aware that you're doing it, that's probably where some of your burnout's coming from. That's probably where some
Hmm.
of your like I can't do this is coming from because those
Yeah,
expectations
yeah,
are just they're for one they probably unrealistic, and two, setting yourself small goals to
yes,
achieve achievable goals that
yes,
feeds into your belief system of I can't do this, and when you achieve
yes.
that next goal it just furthers that belief system.
I feel like as authors, it's important that we create small goals for ourselves and do them. So like a chapter a day or 2 chapters a day, or even for me, when I'm in the midst of editing, I'll, my goal is 3 to 5 pages a day, like very small, and celebrate it.
Yeah,
Make
and it
sure to
looks
celebrate your
different.
goals.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
celebrate that small win. It's so important. Give yourself that grace.
Yeah, yeah.
And don't expect that, things are going to be great from the onset. Just the other day I was out in the recess yard, like the kids wanted to play. There was one kid in particular who wanted to play like kickball. It was like with a bouncy ball rather than with a soccer ball. But so we were playing with it, and this is a kid that I don't think I've seen smile once the entire like 2 months that I've worked at the school. And and I went up to him after, and I was like, "You're really good at this. I feel like we could probably like create like a whole kickball league, because you're that good at this." And he's like, "No, no, I'm no good at this." And I'm like, "Yes, you are. You
Yeah.
absolutely are. And he's like, well, I'm not great at it. And I was like, well, but we just started. It's like he won't give himself the grace of being. I wouldn't even say. I mean, he was honestly great at. I mean, we're kicking it around. Like, why do you have to be like the best at something in order
Yeah.
to enjoy it? You don't.
Have you ever watched
You don't.
Bluey episodes? Have you
I
ever seen
love
Bluey? Oh my
Bluey.
god.
I love
So
Bluey.
you'll know this then. Whenever the mom is talking about drawing and things like that, and she goes, "You're pretty good for a 6-year-old." Like that is something we use in our family all the time because their expectations are up here, right? They're looking at all this stuff out there. They're wanting to be the best. They have all these people, and then just kids beat the crap out of themselves, and that sucks. But like getting to where we're like, you're pretty good for an author who's just publishing their first book. Like
Yeah.
we can do that for
Yeah.
adults too. It doesn't have to just be kids.
I'm still learning this lesson,
Yeah.
Randy. I'm still learning this lesson. I have to tell myself this very same thing. It's almost like it's like a skill that you have to learn.
Yes. Yes. Grace for yourself is a hundred
Grace.
percent a skill.
Yes. I feel like yeah, uh, like think about like I've been doing yoga for 24 years. Like I started when I was 20. So 25 years. And when I started out, I mean, it was like, it was awful. Like it was awful, but you just kind of keep doing it. Now kids are learning how to do yoga like from a very young age, because of YouTube and things like they're doing it as, preschool and stuff like that, even to help like center themselves in class. And even parents are doing it with their kids, you know. And so it's like you have this, it's like, oh, I'm no good at this. It's like, so what?
Yeah. Are you enjoying
Are
yourself?
you are you I mean, like these people have been doing it for, their entire lives. Like you just started. Like you can't possibly expect, to be amazing at something the first time you try it. So I think like as caregivers, as adults, it's important to model that grace for kids.
Yes. Modeling
Um
is
Model
so
it. Yes,
important.
and more model it because yes, they might be the type of kid that like is not, oh, I'm horrible at this. Like I have seen kids that think they're the great, like they think that they're great at
And they
everything.
were modeled that because guess what? I
And
bet mom and dad probably think
yeah,
they're great
yeah,
at what they
yeah,
do.
yeah. I mean, they're told that they're great. So I think that yeah, this is an important thing because and that we have to remember. I mean, as kids, as adults, as creative people, it's important to not let ourselves be stretched, all over the place, and to not place like unreasonable, crazy expectations on ourselves, comparing ourselves to others, because you don't know like where you don't know that in other people's shoes. You don't
Yes.
know other people's stories. And yeah, that's important, and they don't know yours, so it's important.
That's something as I've kind of worked on my mental health and kind of done a lot of awareness stuff is it has really like my awareness of other people and like that guy who just cut me off in traffic or that person who was really rude to me my awareness of what potentially could be going on in their home life is so much higher, and having grace for other people, but also like just because you have a really bad day doesn't mean you can just treat me horribly. I also have developed that too, to where in that moment, yes, I can be aware of like, yeah, they're probably having a bad day, but if they're in my life and they keep coming back into my life and there's someone who's a regular, I can set that boundary of like, just because you have a really bad day doesn't mean you have the right to treat me horribly as well. So there's a
Hmm.
double side to that coin.
Yeah, yeah.
But the awareness of we're all running the same rat race. Like we're all doing it. Some of us just get started off a little sooner than others, end up with, spoons in their mouths or whatever, but they still have their problems too.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I was reading a study about readers, actually, people who read fiction. It was about people who read fiction versus people who don't read or just they read nonfiction. And they did it. It was an empathy study. So they had people like do a test, right? It was, the test was whatever it was the actual test, what people actually, so they told that the people, they had two groups, like the people that don't have who don't read fiction, people who do. And so they completed the test, and the instructions were, okay, so you bring your test to the end of the hall, bring your test and your pencil to the end of the hall. And the actual test was, there was a person that came and basically was going the opposite direction down that hall when they were bringing their test, and they would drop everything in their hands right in front of right in front of the person. And 100% the people that read fiction were the ones who helped pick up the stuff.
Yeah. Because there's emotions in
Because
those stories.
there's the empathy there. It's like
Yeah.
teaching you empathy. You're teaching, yeah, that's it. I mean, so everybody's got a story. They say, like, there's, if you know somebody's story, like you there's you develop empathy for somebody. It's you can't. It's almost like you can't not love somebody after hearing their story.
Right. And that's what I think a lot of stories who like they dive into the villain's backstory and they give them good motives. Like the loving them is a little, maybe maybe that's a stretch, but understanding where they're coming from and having that like a lot of people don't realize that that was one choice that that person made to go down that bad path. And that like so much stuff happened to them, and just being conscious of our choices and being aware of our choices of like if we choose to sit on the couch and not exercise, that's still a choice. If
Hmm.
we choose to get up and exercise, that's still a choice.
Hmm.
And it's the same way with like how we treat other people. If we choose to be jerks to them because we allowed a moment in the past to take control of our emotions, that's a choice. And
Hmm.
being starting to become aware of like consciously making
Yeah.
choices means that you are living life and not just letting life happen to you.
Yes, I would say, like, to choose to that awareness. Yes, is awareness of the choices that you have, everything that you, every bit of every. Oh, yeah, all the choices, the infinite potential, like we were just kind of going at the beginning of this. It is infinite, and so you do have a choice in every moment of every day.
Sarah, I
In
feel like
the
me and you could sit here and talk about all
oh, for sure.
kinds of stuff. I want to get I want to get just a little bit back onto like your books and things like that. There's one big thing that I would really like to kind of talk about, especially as we're kind of in this really deep conversation. You mentioned that, the grief over losing your husband to cancer was kind of what got you on a lot of what you're doing now. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yes. So I am not a natural writer. I'm a very slow writer. I'm not natural. I have aphasia really badly, depending on how much caffeine and how much ginkgo I've had that day. But my husband was my first reader, and he was the one. He basically taught me how to write. So we wrote letters to each other. We wrote letters to each other for 6 years or so. I mean, I'm still writing letters to him, right?
Yeah.
And in effect, like, everything that I do, all of my books, all of my writing is still, it's because he encouraged me. I was told as a kid that I could not write, and I believe that, right? But he was like, no. He was like, no, babe, this is good. Keep going. And so I did. And he I learned how to write through, like, reading his writing as well. His was a very natural writing style. It was very conversational. It always, it strikes you to the heart, like, whether you know it or not, and then it does. Like, it kind of like hits you from behind sometimes. Um, all of his writing did. He was a natural writer. I mean, he knew at age, I think, 17, that there's pictures, photographs of him smoking a cigarette on a typewriter, because he wanted to be a poet. from a very young age. He was a journalist, a poet. Um, and then, yeah, he, so we collaborated on an ongoing project called Encounter, that we didn't know what it was going to be starting out. We thought it was going to be some sort of art installation, like we didn't know. And then it ended up when he was in the hospital, and we didn't know. I mean, we were told at that point he had 3 weeks to live, but it actually ended up being close to 3 months in palliative. Um, and at first, like, we just did not know. And so I was racing to put all of our letters together into a book, into a compilation called Encounter. I was like, this is it. Like, that this is what we worked on, all of our letters, all of our conversations over the past, however many years. Like, let's just put it all together. And so I was racing because he had brain cancer, and it was, brain cancer, it takes a piece away from you every day. Like, you just see them being able to do less and less. And so it was just a race, basically. And I was able to show him the proof of that book. Literally, it was the day before he couldn't talk anymore, and he
Yeah.
couldn't read anymore. So but now I feel like, I keep going as a way to honor him, and to honor us as a couple, like what we did. We were always creative collaborators from the beginning. From the first day, we knew we were creative collaborators. And so I keep going, and like I said, like, I keep writing letters to him. I have a book called Harnessing Light. That was essentially the entire book is letters to him. The children's books, you know, he was able to encourage me in all sorts of ways. Goodness gracious, he was the type of person that if he saw something in you, like, he would help facilitate you to make that next leap. So like, for example, I love when I first discovered PG Wodehouse. He was my favorite author of all time. He went to all the bookstores in the city, and he bought me every book of PG Wodehouse that he could find. And I still have them. Of course, I still have them. And I reread them constantly, right? Because, I mean, you can just. And then Gerard Durrell. He bought me the entire set of Gerard Durrell.
Oh
And he
my
would
gosh.
constantly do that. Like, if he saw, you loved something, or saw that there would be something that he would just. So when I started making creating the read alouds for kids, and he knew if I he was able to teach me how to do all the software for the music, basically, to put it all together, because he knew that, the make putting music underneath, a children's read aloud would make it that much more amazing and more
Yeah.
entrancing and more engaging for kids, and to do all the sound effects and music. So he facilitated all of that. If it weren't for him, like, I honestly I wouldn't be a writer. I mean, full stop. I would not be a writer.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I have, it's amazing. Sometimes I'm going through something, and I'll find a piece of writing, or something that he wrote to me, or about, something that we wrote together or whatever, and I'll find it. And wouldn't you wouldn't I mean, it was just it'll shock you. Like, just, that is the exact thing that I needed to hear, and or see and read at that moment. That's what I was struggling with. And I feel like it can't be a coincidence.
Yeah.
It can't be a coincidence. It happens a lot. It just happened the other day. It happened yesterday. I found a letter that he had written. It was when I was trying to immigrate to Canada, and the process of immigrating to Canada, you need like a lot of letters of recommendation for things, and he was one of those. And so he was like singing my praises in this letter. And like, I've been in the place where I just like it's been a real struggle for me to focus and to remember, my roots and where I am as a creative person. And he, in that letter, that recommendation letter that I found, like he spelled it out. And I was like, I feel this can't be a coincidence.
Yeah.
And so it's still with me. I mean, he's still with me all the time, and I mean, that's what I believe. It's all an illusion. It's just a matter of which one you want to believe, right? So my coping mechanism is to believe that he's still around and listening and still here.
Well, it sounds like his personality was so big that the universe didn't have any choice but to hang on to pieces of him. And that is
He
so
affected the
beautiful.
lives of so many people. I mean, so he was, from the time let it be known that he was sick, that he had cancer, brain cancer. Um, you know, we were, they told us 6 to 12 months. In the end, we had about 14, 15 months. So, um, during that time period, it was a nonstop party. Like the door was constantly, it was like a revolving door, basically. People coming in, people would fly across the country to come see him and me
Celebrate his
and
life.
celebrate. And we had about it was mid-October. Yeah, so it was about maybe a month before. No, it was early October. About a month before he passed. We had a thing called a témoignage, which is like a love-in, basically. It was basically like a Zoom meeting open to the public, and anybody who wanted to join in could. And there were over 600 groups of people. Groups, and I know they were groups because I heard from them later, and they said, yeah, there was a dance group that were like, yeah, we just had to be there together for the emotional support.
Dang.
I mean, there are people calling in from Australia, from the UK, all across Canada, the US, like sitting in on this témoignage. It was like a love-in, basically, I guess it would
Yeah.
be like the English translation for it. So he was able to hear how much everybody loved him and how much he affected their lives when when he could still, he was struggling at first. It was funny, like behind the scenes, I kept on giving him his favorite ice cream so he would kind of stay engaged and stay awake at that point, because it was, but you could tell that he understood.
Yeah.
He wasn't speaking at that point, but like you could tell he understood what was going on. Um, so I think it got through.
Yeah. What would you say to someone struggling to turn, because you clearly have turned your pain into a purpose? And what would you say to someone else who's struggling to do that?
I would say let it happen, let it be. Um, for me, from my personal experience, I pour my heart and soul into creating these books and things for kids to help inspire them to read and write. And that, I feel like that's my underlying mission that propels me forward. In much the way that he did for other people, he facilitated other people's, passions and creative spark. That's what I'm trying to do for kids. Um, but whatever your passion is, I would just say it's already within you. Just let it happen, right? Just, you kind of have to step out of your own way. And it's hard with all the distractions that we have these days. We have a lot of things in our way, and we get in our own way. But let it happen. Just let it be, and it
Yeah.
will. And believe. You have to really believe. I'm a strong proponent, so this is a practice that I'm still trying to cultivate. And I will be for the rest of my life. It's like that belief, that positive kind of that visualization. It's true that whatever, believe is true.
Yeah.
It's a bad way of saying it, but you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
It's like wherever your intention and your belief, your mindset is, like that's where your energy goes towards for that day. So it's if you want to, whatever your goal is, if you're an author who wants to create your first book, or you're already on book 10 or wherever you are, that visualizing finishing that book, or whatever the goal is, visualizing it, you achieving that goal, and then also um, feeling the feelings that that would encompass you once you achieve that goal. So whether it's just like you're just proud of yourself, or it's like you feel like you're just, now you can just be at peace, or now I feel loved by the world. So feel that feeling. You can feel that feeling. You can trick your mind into feeling that feeling, right?
Yeah.
Without having to actually achieve the goal first. And that's it's a practice, right? The more you do it, the stronger it gets. So
That's
it's
such
it's
a good
all it's all
message.
connected. It's all connected. It's all
Yeah.
related. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I love that. And
Yeah.
I really like what you said about just being aware of your thoughts, because whatever you're thinking, that's going to direct you. And if you're not
Yeah.
aware of your thoughts, and you're having negative, and you're having anxiety, and you're having all that, but you're not aware of it, right? It's going to
Hmm.
just kind of pull you along, and getting aware of it and making the choice to, I'm going to think about how awesome it would be to be a best-selling author, and all of these people just gushing over my work and connecting to it and feeling that.
Feeling that sense of just pride, perhaps, whatever it is that the goal underneath your goal is, the feeling underneath of it is what the real goal is. Is it to be loved? That feeling of being loved. For me, that's what it is.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like I am lucky, even at this stage as a writer, that kids, they'll write letters and tell me, like, that I have fan mail and stuff, and I've already seen some of the ways that my writing has been able to, like, the ripple effect, right? The positive ripple effect that my work has created, even at this early stage. I have I had my one of my fans from Bangladesh, who didn't know English before
Oh
she
my
started reading my
gosh.
books, learned English through the read alouds and listening to the books over and over again, because and she actually learned. She wrote me a letter in English, and she said, "I'm going to be a doctor."
Oh my gosh, that's so precious.
Yeah, yeah. I think she's 11 now. So, and I'm
Wow.
like, yes, you will.
Yes.
Yes, you
What
will.
an accomplishment, Sarah. Like we were talking about this earlier. What a way to just reinstate what you're doing is you're on the right path, and you're touching people's lives, and you're changing people's lives. What an amazing thing to get to just really solidify that, and kind of build back into your belief system that this is your purpose. You are doing
Yeah,
what is needed.
yeah. Yes, I'm lucky. I'm very lucky that I've been able to, get feedback from kids like that. I have seen, oh my goodness, I have seen readers as early as, I think it was 6 at the time, or 6, 7. She wasn't quite a reader yet. She was still kind of on the cusp. And she she had listened to chapter 6 in one of my books, The Curious Case, The Creepy Cave. She had listened to it so many times that she had actually memorized it, and she recited the entire chapter to me word for word.
Gosh.
And my jaw dropped to the floor. Like you had to pick it up with a spatula. Like I was just, and she wasn't even reading yet.
Yeah.
And, the same thing, like there was a 7-year-old who read the books, and she actually started writing her own children's book, and she was already on chapter 4, and she was illustrating it as well.
That's so cool.
Kids are amazing like that. Like they will get inspired, and then once they do, it's just like there's no holding back. It's just lovely to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so crazy is you think about us as kids too, right? There was a point in time where we were like that. Like everyone was like that. But then something from the outside tells you you're not good enough, or something from the outside says,
Yeah.
and then we believe it. Like you were
Yes.
saying, the
Yeah.
belief systems that we take on change us.
Yes. Yeah, we get so serious, and it's like in order to be good at something, you have to be already good at it, intrinsically good at it. Like you can't just, yeah. So learning to give yourself that grace of like, yeah, it's gonna be awful. I have as a visual artist as well. I am a strong proponent of you leave all your self-criticism at the studio door. All of it. You leave it there at the door. It does not come in. And on any creative pursuit, in any creative practice, I feel that's the same way. You have to leave it at the door.
Yeah,
And
no,
not
that's
even
good.
creative pursuit. It could be anything. It could be, anything. Learning kickball, learning yoga,
Going
anything
saying
that you
hi to
have.
that girl.
Exactly. Yeah, social skills are a skill you have, which it's gonna be terrible at the beginning. So you build it up. It's a skill like any other. You have to give yourself that grace to just be awful in the
Right. Yeah.
beginning.
Yes. Be excited about failing
It's
the first
okay.
100 times.
It's okay. It's
Yeah. Oh,
okay. Yeah.
that is a good message. Oh my gosh. Being okay with
Important.
failing.
It's
Yeah.
important. I mean, think about it. If you weren't failing, then
You're not doing
then
it.
you're not trying. Like
Yeah.
you're not trying. So I mean, that's you have to. You have to. It's part of it.
So tell us about you have three new, and I know it's been a while since you did your application, so let me know if this has changed, but you do have three new children's books that you're working on, correct?
I did. I have them. They're ready for publication. I have not. But then I've started on two more. One is um well, one is a actually no, it is three more. One is a book of plays that's ongoing. Because I love writing short plays for kids. It's just so much fun, and it's easy, and and you know what? You get that little dopamine hit of finishing something very quickly. It's because it's so quick and easy. They're great. I'm starting a book of poems, kind of like Shel Silverstein did once upon a time, dating myself, honestly. But I mean, he wrote dozens of books, so yeah. But yeah, no, but this is part of my practice of teaching myself more about poetry. I'm learning from a writer named Mark uh, Forsyth, who he teaches all sorts of things about poetry, scansion, rhyming, meter, like all the different types of meter. And I'm learning about this. And the book that I'm writing is just kind of putting his lessons into practice for poems for kids, kind of like Shel Silverstein did in these bite-sized forms. And I'm trying to make them relevant, like as relevant as I possibly can. So I'm trying to get inspired by the kids at school, or, issues that they're going through or whatever, or funny things that they say. So it's like of the moment. But also in universal at the same time. Like kids are going to love snow days, like, no matter what. Where,
Right. Yeah.
50 years from now, they're still going to love, getting off from school and having a free day to just go play.
And then it's
And
so crazy as adults, we hate it. We're like, oh my God, a snow day. No.
yeah,
Do you
You
remember
have
when we
to.
used to enjoy these? That's
Oh
another
yeah.
good concept. I
Oh
love
yeah.
that.
The third book that I'm working on is it's more of a novel. My niece Sophia said, she wants me to write. She's very particular about how long she wants it. So she requested that it was about 50,000 words. So
That's cute. Here's my
so
order. Go ahead and fill
yeah,
this for
yes.
me.
Fill this order fast as you can. All right, Abba, move it. Are you done yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a my process is because I am such a slow writer and because I have aphasia and da da da. Um, I'm writing this is the longest novel that I've written, so I'm actually writing it as a screenplay and just to get the structure, the story structure. I want to make sure that everything kind of flows and makes sense and works, and I'm trying to show it to different people in this form just to see. I'm going to bring it to my one of my screenwriters groups, my Monday night screenwriter group, see what they think. Although I mean it's not the right audience. I mean kids will, they have very different opinions from what
Right.
adults will think of what makes a good story. So yeah, I will try to put this in front of as many willing willing
Yeah.
participants as I possibly can, just to get that initial feedback, and then I'll start turning it into the writing of an actual novel and start like wordsmithing and things like that and polishing. Um, but it's just easier for me to write it. It's like screenplay writing is it's like shorthand. So it's a lot easier to make those initial mistakes and to work all those out. Just the story, the plotting, basically.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
easier to do in shorthand. Yeah.
Everyone's got their and figuring out your own style and figuring out what works for you is so important as you
Hmm.
develop your creative process. Like you don't
Hmm.
have to do what the famous person right now at this point in time is doing.
Yeah. I would say, yeah, there's the pantsers, the plotters, and there's the somewhere in betweens. I would say the more complex your novel is, or if you're doing more of a mystery or suspense, like you probably need to kind of veer towards more of a plotter, just for your own sanity, so you're not rewriting, the book 50 times.
I actually just talked to someone yesterday who said that they thought the same thing, and they talked to like a really famous mystery thriller writer, and she goes, "Actually, I just end up with a dead body and see where it takes me." And I'm like, "How?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my gosh!"
yeah, yeah. I mean, I am not that talented, so
No, that gives me
so
anxiety
I
even
have
think.
to plan.
Yeah,
I think there's that for me. There's definitely those little moments for me. Like the the plotting is very designed, but actually, like for kids, it's a little different when you're reading aloud too, because a lot of it is if you can't pull it off as a performer, if it sounds weird, if it doesn't roll off the tongue, if it's not funny, then you got to rewrite it. So that's kind of how that's like the end stage. Like right now I'm doing it as a screenplay, but eventually I will write as a novel and then I will start recording it as a performer. And so if it doesn't work, then I will have to backtrack, and which I have done. Secret Code was re-recorded, I think over a dozen times
yeah.
because I found something while I was recording it. I was like, man, that just doesn't fit, or this would be funnier. Let me try this. And then I had to rewrite and then re-record.
I love how you
This was part of the
develop
process.
through the process. Yeah, that's so cool. And again, there's no right or wrong. And I think that like you are like, okay, let's put this out there. Let's see the reactions we get. Let's see how this hits. Let's see how okay, now let's change this. Let's adjust this. Let's fine tune this. And you like the way that you pay attention to human emotions and how it connects, that is amazing and very beautiful.
We that is I mean, we have a number of goals as writers, right? I mean, our first being to connect. I mean, this is why we write stories to begin with, is to connect with people, to show people that they are not alone, you know. I mean, think about like when you're telling a story to a person, like in a, it doesn't have anywhere, like in a party or restaurant or whatever, a bar or whatever, you're telling a story to a friend. You know, you're think about why you're telling that story. You know, usually if it's a funny story, which is probably, if you're telling it in that kind of situation, it's going to have some sort of punch. It's to connect in that way, to show that, yeah, we're not alone in this. Or we can be alone in it together, kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
it's to show people we're not alone.
Yeah, the
And that
connection.
is yeah, to connect.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that is our most important um ultimate goal as to write, as storytellers, as writers, is to
Yeah.
connect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where can people go to? Because you have set this up to where anyone listening, they want to feel what you put into your work now. Like you've set this call up so beautifully to where the emotions that you are describing and the connections that you have with your work, like that's an exciting thing. Where can people go to find your books or follow your work?
I have I have built a website, which is I mean, I can give it to you, or we can put it in the notes or whatever. It's https colon slash slash claygrouse.org. Clay Grouse is my own publishing house, which I've had for about 14 years now. Goodness gracious. And I'm trying to focus it more on kids, so Clay Grouse Kids. Yeah, so everything kids, but it's not, I do art books and poetry books and things like that for friends and things like that. So, but yeah, but that's on the adult side, the Clay Grouse, but claygrouse.kids.org. And from there are uh, the YouTube videos and things. I do have a YouTube channel called Read Aloud with ABBA, ABBA, like the band. um, and yeah, so that's where I'm at. Uh, I'm trying to find platforms that are more appropriate for kids, because I know a lot of YouTube is, I mean, yes, I have a very like love-hate relationship with YouTube. But for kids, it's very difficult to reach them because if you're an indie, because you don't, unless you started early, or if you have some sort of um, some sort of Faustian relationship with the algorithmic gods
Right.
on Facebook or on YouTube. Yeah, like it's very difficult to, but also like YouTube, in the US, YouTube is not allowed to show advertisements to kids, but they do anyway, and they do in other countries all around the world. And I mean, it's very frustrating. Yeah, it's very frustrating. But so I understand why parents don't allow. I mean, it's not just that reason. I understand why parents don't allow kids to watch YouTube and things, but I'm trying to find ways to get the word out there.
Yeah.
But that's what I have so far as of yet. But I haven't found a platform that is better suited yet. I don't know if it's been built yet, but I will be on that once it is.
Right, yeah. That's the thing is we have to not like new platforms when they come out. We don't know enough about them to, put all of our chips into the thing, but if we don't, then we can miss out on like the big boom that happens when it blows up.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
another
that
piece of
boom. Yeah, the boom that it's like very early on. I think we're kind of post boom era with all sorts of like Instagram, Facebook, all of
yeah.
those, if YouTube as well. Like I think yeah, it's very difficult to create an audience base on those now. Much more difficult than it used to be, but but it's also kind of where I've had to come to grips with like I'm just not good at the whole uh branding and all that. Like it's just it takes so much energy for me to do that, and it takes away, like I have to manage my energy very carefully. So
Yes.
it's a difficult call. So right now I'm just trying to concentrate on creating the most engaging books that I can, and getting it in front of kids. And just so right now I'm kind of in the trenches with that, but later on I'll have to switch gears and think about promotion again. Not that I'm not already thinking about it, but right now I'm just trying to make the best book that I possibly can, which is kind of promotion, and it's all just
Right.
marketing, right? In its
Yeah,
own
yeah,
way.
exactly. Once
Yeah,
that's out there, people are going to review it,
yeah,
people are going to look at
yeah,
it. Yeah, no,
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Sarah,
Um,
I feel like we could sit here and talk
oh,
all
absolutely.
day long. This is fantastic. I definitely want to have you back on the show because, like, I have so many questions here that I have not gotten to. We have the
I
show
know
notes
we
that
went
I've
off the
hit
rails
like three.
so
I
many
but
times.
I told you at the beginning that is exactly how these episodes go. But I
Yeah.
love it. It's authentic. It's conversations. You
Yeah.
hit some very deep and important conversations that I think it needs to be out there. So that's why I
Thank
do
you.
what I do and
Yes,
why
this is why
it's
we do what we do. Yes.
yep,
Yes, this is it. Yeah, connecting with
yeah,
people. Yeah, and it's
exactly.
like if we are able to make the life of one listener, that much better, then it's worth it, right?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are amazing. I want to have you back on the show, so I will be reaching out. Listeners, let us
Absolutely.
know what you think of this, and please, please go follow Sarah Beth. Go give her YouTube a thumbs up. Give it a subscribe. Share it with your kiddos. Let your kiddos listen to some of the amazing work that she's doing. Support her on her journey. I definitely know I'm going to. And then please do not forget to like, share, comment on this podcast as well. And Sarah, thank you so much for being on the episode.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to connect. Yeah. I'm it's great.
You are
It's
not alone.
really great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of L3. We'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, thanks for joining us on this episode of Lemons Listening Library. Remember, every story has a journey, and every journey deserves to be heard. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep listening.